Amazon disappeared from Google Shopping ads last week, leaving billions in traffic on the table for online retailers. In this video, I'm going to show you how to assess the opportunity and capture it with Google Shopping ads. If you like what you see in this video and get value from it, please like and subscribe to the channel to be notified when we release new videos.
So the first thing you've got to do is carry out an opportunity audit. Now, the best way to do this is go into your Google Ad account, click on Insights and Reports, and then Auction Insights. This is going to give you an overview of who you're competing with for your shopping ads. Make sure you've selected the drop down here to be Google Shopping because you want it to be relative to your Google Shopping ads. Amazon have exited Google Shopping, but as far as we've seen so far, they haven't exited search ads. So that's going to skew your results. You want to be looking at your Google Shopping results. So most recent week, 21st to 27th of July, time of filming. That's this particular account. Search impression share is 83%. Temu is second at 62%, and then other advertisers are down, further down the list in terms of their search impression share. So we know that Amazon isn't here right now. We've just got to roll the dates back and find out if, in fact, they were advertising in the past. So if we roll the dates back, let's say to 7th to the 13th of July. So here we have the auction insights for the 7th to the 13th of July. And as you can see here, Amazon.co.uk at top of the search impression share with 93.7%. So that tells us that, yes, in fact, there is an opportunity here in this account. We were competing with Amazon, very much so, big overlap rates. They had a high search impression share. So their exit is going to impact our traffic. We're going to see an opportunity here for sure. So as I say, carry this out in your own account, use the dates to compare. You'll see that Amazon in the past had some search impression share. It is likely to be high. And then over the recent weeks, it's going to have fallen. And then more recently, they're going to disappear. We've seen this across a number of our clients that were competing with Amazon. Some of our clients don't compete with Amazon just due to the nature of the product they sell. But we have seen, we are seeing this across the board. So it is likely that if you have seen Amazon compete with you in the past, that you will have also seen them disappear. Something else that's worth looking at is good. You want to look at what your competitors are doing because somebody's going to fill that void. Now in this case, we were second to Amazon. We're going to be filling this void because we're pretty dominant. But if like Temu, they're pretty big, 30%. They're going to be wanting to capitalize on that. They're going to be aware of that Amazon have exited. They're going to be aware of that opportunity also. So what you might find is if you're on average, if you're further down the list down here, some of these bigger players that are already dominant are just going to kind of start to fill this void. And that might be where you have to take some action. The first thing that you want to check is your budget, because naturally, particularly in the case of this account, we were second to Amazon. Amazon disappears. We're going to automatically start filling that void. And you're going to see an increase in ad impressions. You're going to see an increase in ad clicks. Your ad rank will be higher in general. So you're going to get a bigger share of the search traffic that you had before. You're going to see an increased spend. You're going to see increased traffic. So the first thing to look at is, do you have headroom in your budget to facilitate that? Depending on the time that you watch this video, you might already start to see an increase in traffic and therefore constraints to your budget. So check if you have the headroom or check if you're seeing constraints. And then when you do see a warning such as this in Google Shopping, a campaign is limited by budget, then you've got a good idea of why this is. Here you can see that we've had an increase in traffic and again seeing the account in this particular campaign, it's limited by budget. And because we've done our research into why that might be, we know that this is likely the reason. It is likely that we're getting the share of traffic that Amazon were getting in the past. And therefore, we're going to have to increase our spending. Now, this particular account had actually had budget increases to try and head off this because we could see this happening. But it seems that we're still seeing growth and we've still got still got opportunity to grow further. So, as I say, get context as to what's going on. You've checked your auction insights. Also check insights in terms of search queries. Make sure they're still on theme. Are you getting traffic that you wouldn't normally get? And also check your return on ad spend. Is this still good, or is it not? If it isn't as good as it was, you might be scaling into different traffic, and it might not be as good quality, so it might not convert at a good rate. But if all things hold up well, then you've got an opportunity, and it's going to be okay to increase your budget. But you've got to know what's driving that increased spend. And I think it's good to mention, but we've actually released a video that talks about assessing limited by budget warnings in Google and how to get context as to what that is. So if you haven't seen that before and you want to get further into that, then I recommend that you check that out. Another thing to look at, aside from budget, what else can you look at? Well, your bid strategy might be one of them.
So to assess your bid strategy, first of all, you need to kind of get an idea as to what is happening with regards to Amazon exiting Google Shopping, what the impact of that is on Auction Insights, which we've already discussed, but also where you are in that hierarchy of you versus your competitors. Now, in this case, in this example here, we've got you, which is this account that we're looking at. This is what you'll see. Your account will be you here. Search impression share is 60.37%. We're top. We're above everybody else. And in this particular account, we're seeing a change in traffic and the average cost per click, which I'll go into in a moment. However, if this is where you are right now, it's probably unlikely that you're going to need to adjust your bid strategy, and it's going to be more down to budget. However, if you're a bit further down the page, perhaps like eBay or even below, what you're going to find is that these larger advertisers, particularly Temu, because they're a big advertiser, they're up here, say, if we weren't here, they would be top. They would be looking to fill that void of Amazon and, also use some qualitative analysis. What do they sell? How do they compete? Temu, we know that they want to compete with Amazon. So they're going to be quite aggressively trying to fill that void. So if that's being the case, or another big advertiser, for example, and you're further down the list here, sort of below in the lower half, the only way you're going to really increase your search impression share and capitalize on that is by increasing your ad rank. And that's where your bid strategy comes in. So the only way you're going to increase your ad rank is be more aggressive with your bidding. But of course, you're going to have to use some caution. Your bid strategy will have been set at what it is for a reason. You've got profits to protect. You want to make money. You're going to have to kind of evaluate that on what you're seeing more recently. It might be that you're seeing an uptick in conversion rate because of the removal of a big competitor. If Amazon was in fact gobbling up a lot of the sales and now they're not there, you may well find that you're going to see an increased conversion rate, and therefore you'll be able to adjust your bid strategy accordingly because you can afford to, because your sales rate is much, much better. Temporarily adjust it and see how it goes. Keep an eye on it, assess it, put it back if you need to. But that's something that you're going to have to consider. If you've got a lower search impression share, the only way you're going to really kind of capitalize on this opportunity is to increase that search impression share, and that's going to be by relaxing bid strategy constraint. Once you've assessed the opportunity with regards to your auction insights, you have a look at what your traffic's doing. In this particular case, over the last couple of weeks, we're seeing traffic increase here. We're seeing a fall in cost per click. Again, that's all very, very positive. We're going to see a better return on ad spend. We're seeing a higher conversion rate. In this particular case, as this account has a high search impression share anyway, we don't really need to worry about bid strategy. Budget constraint is the problem. But if you're seeing that and you're worried about reducing your bid strategy targets to be more aggressive and to erode that search impression share, and if you are seeing a higher conversion rate, if you are seeing a decline in cost per click and an increase in traffic, those are all very positive signs. So that might give you a little bit of confidence to kind of give that a test to see how it goes. If you're perhaps less confident with doing that, in some accounts, there are a large number of products in a handful of campaigns that are actually accounting for quite a high amount of your ad budget and quite a high amount of your sales proportionally to everything else. What can you do to mitigate that risk? Well, a couple of ideas could be, you could look at account structure, perhaps try it with just your best sellers. If you've got a couple of products that are best sellers, you know that you're strong on them, you know that they sell well, you've got a good idea what the return on ad spend is them. It's probably higher than everything else. So that is something you could try segmenting into a separate campaign and test it that way. An alternative could be perhaps that you have some products that you remove from campaigns in the past because they were not profitable. And that might be because of Amazon was getting all the sales for those products. So you found it very, very difficult to compete with the strategy that they were using. If they're not there any longer, then those products may well work. So it's perhaps worth bringing them back. In fact, we've got a Google shopping campaign here running at a very low budget just for a couple of products that in the past weren't really, recently they haven't been doing anything. So now's the time to test it out and to try pushing it to see if we can bring some sales back for those that we'd lost in the past. You don't know unless you test it. But again, that's another low risk. You could do it with a small budget. It's not going to really impact your core campaigns. It's outside of what you're going for at the moment. So that's another idea. So, it's going to depend on what sector you're in. and very much what you sell. Take sports and outdoor, for example. We have a few clients in this space. Some are affected by the by the disappearance of Amazon. Some are not, due to the products they sell. Particularly with high-end products, they haven't really had to compete with Amazon at all. So this has had no impact for them. Whereas we've got this client here, for example, they sell products at a lower price point, between anything from a few £100s upwards to £600 or £700, and they have had to compete with Amazon for something. So we're seeing the benefit here. So that pretty much wraps up this video. I hope that's been helpful. I wanted to get this out quite quickly and keep it quite simple so that advertisers can get a grasp of it quite easily and implement what's going on quite quickly. Always remember to have context as to what's going on. If you're seeing increases in traffic and increases in sales, be sure to know why before you start increasing your budgets. If you are in fact seeing an increase in traffic and performance, it is over the last couple of weeks, it is likely to be the exit of Amazon that's causing this, but it's not impossible that it isn't something else. If you got any value from this today, please like the video and feel free to ask any questions in the comments. And if you want to see more, subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. Good luck and have a great day.